So you've probably never heard of the Abxylute One Pro, and honestly, that's not surprising. It's a pretty niche streaming handheld that's designed to go toe to toe with the PlayStation Portal, but it's flown completely under the radar. And here's why you should care, because after spending a couple of weeks testing this thing, it feels like it might actually be the PSP2 we never got. So today I want to break down what the Abxylute One Pro does well, where it falls short, how it compares to the Portal, and why this device surprised me way more than I expected. Inside the box, things are really simple. You get the Abxylute One Pro itself, a USB-C cable, and a user manual which you will never read. Nothing fancy, but that's fine. This isn't trying to be a luxury unboxing experience, and it shows. One thing that is a bit of a shame though, is there is no carrying case included. The original Abxylute One actually came with a really nice case, and luckily enough, it fits the One Pro perfectly. I'm actually using that original case to protect my Pro right now. And if you're picking one of these up, I'd honestly recommend grabbing a case straight away. I'll leave links in the description to the carry case if you want to pick one up. The first thing that stood out to me straight away was the look of the device. This smoky black transparent front shell looks genuinely cool. It has that old school tech vibe that instantly reminds me of classic handhelds and consoles from back in the day. I'd love to see this offered in more colours though. Give me something like an N64 Fantastic Style range, and now we're talking. Size-wise, it's definitely on the larger side. It's not a small handheld, but it's also surprisingly light for how big it is. And once you start using it, it feels like a proper, dedicated gaming device rather than a tablet with controls bolted on. Without a doubt, the main selling point of the Abxylute One Pro is the screen. You're getting a 7-inch Full HD IPS touchscreen display, and it's one of the largest screens you'll find on an Android gaming handheld, especially at this price point, which, if you're wondering, is round about £190 or 180 odd dollars. It's not OLED and it's limited to 60 Hz, but those feel like reasonable trade-offs here. And the panel is really bright, sharp, and just really nice to use and look at. For streaming and handheld play, that size of screen can make a massive difference. Games feel more immersive. Text is much easier to read, which can be a problem on smaller screens when you're playing on the go. And it's far more comfortable than squinting at a phone screen. The 16:9 aspect ratio is also a big win, especially for streaming, and I'll come back to that in a minute. The benefit of a larger handheld is full-sized controls, and for the most part, the Abxylute absolutely nails this. The sticks are way bigger than the original Abxylute One, which basically had Nintendo Switch style sticks. So this is a big upgrade. There are also some new Hall effect style technology, so it means they won't get stick drift, which is great. They have great range of motion and they feel good to use. The triggers are well placed. Also, you've got the analog triggers at the back as well, which is handy for driving games. And combined with the asymmetrical stick layout, this setup works really well with most games. If you're used to an Xbox style controller, you'll be right at home here. The buttons are nice and quiet, responsive, they feel really good. The D-pad is probably the weakest part. It is kind of mushy, but still perfectly usable. Where things aren't quite perfect though, is the ergonomics. And I think it's because I've been spoiled for so long with the Portal, which is just so damn comfortable to use. There are grips at the back of the Abxylute One Pro, but they don't quite land where my hands naturally want them to be. They're either a bit too small or too close to the edge, when I have my hands on the device, and this means you feel like you're bending your thumbs a bit much to reach the sticks, which can get uncomfortable during longer gaming sessions. It's not uncomfortable to the point of being a deal breaker, but this is a device that would massively benefit from an aftermarket grip, especially for people with larger hands. The overall experience of using this device is very console-like. If you've ever used the Backbone app, The layout here of the UI will feel quite familiar. You've got rows of icons with quick access to games and apps and services, and a very handheld first design. The difference is this doesn't feel cluttered or locked behind paywalls. I actually prefer this experience overall versus the one on the backbone. And of course, because it's Android, you can switch into tablet mode whenever you want and use it like a regular Android device. One big difference here is how much snappier the UI feels compared to the original Abxylute one, which was very sluggish in comparison to this, which just breezes through the menus and is way, way, way nicer to use. Now let's talk streaming. After all, that's probably why you're here. I've tested PlayStation Remote Play using the official app, and overall, the experience was solid. It's not perfect, and it never will be, because streaming always depends on your Wi-Fi. Let's get real here, people. But it was absolutely playable. I had a few minor hiccups here and there, some occasional frame drops, but importantly, the device never fully lost connection with my PlayStation, which was awesome. The Abxylute uses Wi-Fi 5, not Wi-Fi 6 or 6E, so you're not getting top tier speeds or range, but for me, it was more than good enough. You could also use the unofficial app PX Play for remote play on your PlayStation, but it's a few extra steps to set up, so I just stuck with the official app, which is super easy to get up and running, and it's free, unlike PX Play, which you need to buy. PX Play does offer a lot of customization and settings you can tweak, so if you're into tinkering with your settings, that is well worth checking out on the Abxylute. One thing I really appreciate is how quiet the device is. Thermals and noise are excellent, even during longer sessions. It always stays super cool and silent, which isn't always the case with more powerful handhelds that rely on louder fans. It can sound like there's a jet taking off in your hands. The front-facing speakers here are quite good and get quite loud. And you've got options for audio like 3.5mm headphone jack on the bottom of the device, and Bluetooth is supported too. So you can use pretty much any wireless headset you like, which is something you can't do on the Portal, annoyingly enough. And this is where the screen on the Abxylute really shines for streaming. It is great because it's a 16:9 display. PlayStation Remote Play fills the screen properly. You don't get black bars you usually see on your mobile phone, which are often wider than 16:9. That alone makes the device feel much more natural as a game streaming console versus on mobile. Like I said, you always get these black bars when you're playing via remote play, which is quite annoying. One other thing which is a little bit annoying, but there's nothing Abxylute can do about it unless they had a deal to license the icons for the PlayStation buttons from Sony. You do notice this. As mainly a PlayStation player like myself, the face buttons are in the Xbox layout and obviously don't have the PlayStation icons on them. So you need to rely on your muscle memory to press the correct buttons. One other cool thing that the Abxylute One Pro does, which I unfortunately have not been able to test out yet because I do not have the correct cable, is you can plug into this USB-C output here and output it to your TV via HDMI. So you could use this basically as a portable game system. You're using this as your controller, and what is on this screen is mirrored on the big screen. That is something a few people have actually commented under my videos saying they would like the Portal to be able to do that. Well, the Abxylute One Pro can. So I could be sitting here playing Wipeout Pure and it would be on the telly right there if I had the correct cable, which I will try and get my hands on and test that out in the future. Can also play Android games on this thing because it is an Android device, and I've only tested a small amount of native Android games on this, mainly Asphalt, and performance was really solid there. That said, with only 4GB of RAM, you can definitely tell there's a limit to how far you can push things. This isn't the most powerful Android handheld out there, and it's definitely not trying to be. So if Android gaming is your thing, and you have one of these or are picking one of these up, definitely stick to like low to medium performance level games on this device and you should be okay. Now let's talk about the part that really surprised me with the Abxylute One Pro. Most retro games can be emulated on pretty much anything these days, so light emulation here isn't shocking. What is interesting is how well this device fits PSP games specifically. The MediaTek Genio 510 is not a powerhouse chip, but it's more than enough for PSP titles, and in my opinion, that is where the Abxylute One Pro feels completely at home. The 16 by 9 screen means PSP games fill the display properly without massive black bars down the sides, which you get with a lot of older retro systems when they're emulated. Visually, the PSP games look great, runs great on the device, and the controls feel spot on. It definitely runs PSP games smoother than the original Abxylute One did also, so the power bump in the Pro is being put to good use here. And this also shows just how far ahead of the time the PSP was. The games look freaking amazing, and there's such an incredible library of games. That got me thinking, could this just be the ultimate PlayStation handheld for right now? So I thought, what's next? PlayStation Vita. I did also try emulating the PlayStation Vita, but I couldn't get that working properly. I'm not entirely sure why. So I would buy this device if Vita emulation is what you had in mind, but as a modern way to play PSP games, this just works really well as an overall package. A nice bonus to the cloud game streaming, which I guess is the main purpose of this device and probably the main reason a lot of you would be picking this up. Speaking of that, who actually should buy the Abxylute One Pro? Well, this is a great pick if you're interested in a cloud or remote gaming handheld, similar to the PlayStation Portal, but you play on more than one platform. If you play on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC, or even Amazon Luna, and you don't want to be locked into a single ecosystem, this makes a lot of sense. It's also a nice option for media consumption. Because it's Android, you can watch YouTube, Netflix, and whatever else you want on it. And if you hate phone mounts or controller clips, this gives a proper dedicated handheld feel instead of just clipping something onto your mobile phone. But if you're a PlayStation only gamer, I'll be honest, stick with the Portal. It's the better all-round device for that ecosystem, especially with PlayStation Cloud streaming support in supported regions where you can stream games from PS Plus or own the games from your library if you have a PS Plus premium subscription. It's way more focused, more integrated, and just does exactly what you would want a PlayStation streaming handheld to do. If you play on PlayStation and other platforms though, and you want one handheld to stream everything, the Abxylute One Pro is a pretty nice device. And if you are thinking of picking one up, I've got an affiliate link in the description to a great deal on the One Pro. It gets you the best price I could find and helps support the channel at the same time. For me though, this has basically become my PSP for 2026, which might leave you wondering why I think the PlayStation Portal is so good for PlayStation gamers. Well, you can find out about that in this video on screen now.